New York Times bestselling author Katherine Center is known for her bittersweet comic novels about how we fall down and how we get back up. Her upcoming novel, The Love Haters, features a bikini-phobic videographer who can't swim, a hunky Coast Guard search and rescue swimmer, and a scheming group of matchmaking old ladies against the backdrop of a colorful Key West setting. With us now to tell us more about her new book is Houston author Katherine Center. Katherine, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
Okay, Book Page hails you as the reigning queen of comfort reads, and Jodi Picoult, I think is how you say your name, calls your work the balm we need in the world right now. With accolades like that, what's the secret to your success?
Oh, I think it's gratitude, maybe. Just focusing on the good stuff in life and really working hard to find it, search it out, finding the upsides to things. These books are not here to depress you. They are here to lift you up and help us all feel better.
I think it's talent. I studied writing in college. I've written a book myself. I think voice is the key to a good book of any kind. And I had a time to read 3 pages.
Oh,
and I'm hooked. No, I'm hooked. You're the voice, the already the humor, and the mystery's already set. How's this going to go from page 1? I think it's brilliant writing. So I really think you're quite talented.
Oh, thanks.
And I've never read anything of yours, but I can't wait to go home and read this.
Now, Katherine, when did you realize that you wanted to be a writer? Because this is not an easy industry to be in, and you're from Houston.
Yeah, no, I'm very glad that I did not know how hard it was going to be when I started. I never would have tried. 6th grade was when I decided I wanted to be a writer, and it started because I was very dorky in the 6th grade, and I was very awkward and very miserable, and I had terrible hair and no fashion sense, and I knew it. I could feel it. I could sense it. I knew that I was not succeeding as a 6th grader.
Sure.
And I was really struggling with it. I would just kind of walk around all day, sort of hunched over an apology, I'm sorry. I too wish this were not happening.
And it is.
Yeah.
But I was lucky that year because I had 2 best friends who were also awkward and also miserable, and we got this idea that we should write novels about the 1980s boy band Duran Duran. And we should cast ourselves as the main characters in the novels. And so we did. And that was when I got hooked, because we would write all week in our little notebooks like Harriet the Spy.
Yeah.
And then we would get together on the weekends, put on our PJs, pile into somebody's bed, open up our novels, and read them to each other.
Wow,
And
you
Oh my
were
gosh.
nerds.
So my daughter
we were super nerds.
My daughter just finished her first Harriet the Spy. So I love that you read
So this is sort of your big town is sort of a rom-com writer. Why that genre? Which is fun. I feel like I'm already reading a Hallmark movie. But why that?
It's much better writing than a Hallmark movie. We'll put
Oh, I
that
know.
out there.
And we know what's going to happen in a Hallmark movie. So.
Yeah, well, that's part of why they're so great. I feel so lucky that I get to spend my life studying stories, obsessing over stories, writing stories. But I also feel really lucky and smart that I chose rom-coms as my genre, because rom-coms have a constitutionally guaranteed happily ever after waiting for you at the end of the story.
Absolutely.
And so because of that, because that's essential to the genre, everything that happens along the way is sort of positively valenced. You have this feeling of anticipation and something good, not just good, blissful is waiting for you.
But don't
when you
you
get to the
ever
end.
just want to take that left turn and be like, ha ha, caught you all.
I would never
Plot-
do that.
It
Plot
was
twist.
a suicide pact.
Plot twist.
No.
The cruelty, I would never do that. I feel like my Katherine Center guarantee is that I will never run the main character over with a bus in the final chapter.
Okay,
No.
but we mentioned Hallmark earlier, and what I like to call the Hallmark effect on this is that it's created a genre concept or conceit that in some ways seems shallow and repetitive and all that. How has that made it more challenging in this genre of writing not to fall into that?
I think the trick to all of that is to make your characters incredibly complicated, messy people who are struggling with things, right?
Yeah.
So all genres have tropes, by the way, not just love stories. You know,
yeah.
Military stories have tropes, mysteries have tropes. We all, love a great mystery about some British person in a giant mansion who has to solve a mystery, on a weekend. They've all got them. Romance has them. And I think the trick to writing really good stories in any genre is to play with those tropes, right? And to make them fresh and to rework them in new ways.
Well, even the title, The Love Haters, that right there sets up, what is going to happen here?
Yeah, you're putting opposites together and it kind of creates this energy, which is actually how I feel when you're putting a story together at the very beginning and you're figuring out what are the big pieces in the story going to be, like the big components of the plot. I always feel like they have to have that feeling between them that's like when you're trying to put the wrong sides of two magnets together. You know how they can resist each other a little bit? Whatever that tension is, that's what you need in the pieces of your plot that they sort of push against each other. And that's what kind of lights the story up from the inside.
Talk to me about inspirations, because critics frequently liken you to both Jane Austen, pretty impressive, and Nora Ephron. Did they inspire your writing, or do you have inspirations out there, or did this just come from within you?
I would say a little Sylvia Plath is in there.
Oh, that's interesting. I love Sylvia Plath.
Oh, I do too.
Well, I think Jane Austen had a kind of insight into society and into people that kind of maybe is similar to what I do. And then Nora Ephron is the queen of dialogue, right? And that's kind of my strongest thing, like dialogue. I never ever have to think about writing dialogue. I've never read a book about how to write dialogue. I just put the right people in the right situation and they start talking to each other, and then I just take dictation.
We want to remind you, we're speaking with Katherine Center, the author of the Love Haters book, and you can join the conversation at 713-440-8870. Now, quick question for you. If somebody's listening and they're saying, you know what, I have a passion for writing and I would love to publish a book, where should they start? And what advice would you give to somebody who's like, I would love to write?
You should do it.
Yeah.
Writing is no matter what happens on the publishing end of writing, the act of writing itself is really nourishing, right? So even if you just write it and just your mom reads it, which is how things were for me for a long time, just doing it is making you a better person, right? Just doing it is connecting you with all kinds of insights about life and what you think really matters, and you slowly get better. And it is a very slow process learning to write. You can't just do it in a week. So my advice to sort of young writers always starting out is that you should practice the art of self-encouragement. You should pay attention to what you're getting right, because that's going to show you where to go. The more things you can see that you're getting right, the more things you can do like that as you go along.
Okay, let's talk about Key West. Because, we have Coast Guard in Galveston. You didn't choose Galveston. I've been on a boat they've actually stopped in Kemah. But so why Key West?
I was going to write a book before the pandemic that was set in Key West on a cruise ship. And then the pandemic happened, and I thought, well, no one's ever going to go on another cruise ship again. And so we actually shelved that book.
Oh, no.
And so, but I still had been to Key West, and I still had this location sort of bright in my mind. And so I brought it back for this story in this new way.
I've been so many times. I love it.
It's so beautiful.
It's magical.
So charming. It really, really is. But I will say, I did do research with Air Station Houston.
There you go.
The Houston Coast Guard. I went and hung out with them. And, it was my husband's idea that I write this book, because he was like, if you want to write about courage and altruism, you should look at the Coast Guard.
Yep.
And I had never really thought about the Coast Guard too much before that. But he sent me a few videos and I was like, this is a great idea. Yeah, we should definitely do this. So I got in touch with their big, production company that lets you come in and do stuff. And they let me come down there and hang out. And I had so much fun. I was terrified to meet them. I knew that I was not qualified to be hanging out in the Coast Guard. And they were so kind and welcoming, right? And they talked to me for hours and hours about the job and how it all works. And then I got pretty comfortable, and we started taking pictures for Instagram, And after a while, my husband saw the pictures and he was like, what kind of questions are you asking these people? What is the research exactly?
Well, we do have a question from one of our YouTube watchers, and he wants to know how hard copy books differ from digital copies or just listening to them, in your opinion, Katherine.
Oh, well, hard copies are, they're
Hard.
fancy, right?
and they're for a lounge chair at the beach.
And this particular one is one for the trophy shelf, because it has these pretty stained edges on the paper, and it's got special end papers that look like palm trees.
Yes.
So I think people buy hardcovers when they really think they're going to want to keep it for a long time and get it signed and have the value go up. Paperbacks are easier to tote around and they don't weigh as much. Audiobooks are great for being
on the go.
Their company. You know,
Really
like
quickly,
for me.
you're about to leave us, but I do want to remind everyone you are receiving the UH Distinguished Alumni Award this year.
I am. This weekend.
Congratulations on that.
That's awesome. And St. Martin's Press, not too shabby.
Thank you.
Katherine Center is the author of The Love Haters. Katherine, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston. The Love Haters will be available Tuesday, May 20th, wherever books are available.